4 weeks worth of pay, and we ended up, like I said, then in Broken Arrow. And so anyway, after that was over, same thing. Well, go find you another store is what they told him to do. And that's where he found the store where our office is now at 200 West Choctaw. And it was really a interesting deal. They didn't sell ice cream. They didn't sell marshmallows. Had wooden shelving. It was just kind of dilapidated, old building. And anyway, back to the entrepreneurial side of that, he cut a deal with the people that owned it. They also owned the Dairy Queen, Dairy Freeze up at the top of the hill, the Rhodes family. It was the IGA, which was not an affiliation. That's just an affiliation through warehouses that we were not affiliated with. So anyway, my dad put the deal together, had it all figured out to where they could close an inventory on Friday night. They set it up that way, and the reason he set it up that way is because all the banks were closed on Saturdays and Sundays. Or Sundays, even now, some of them are open, no ATMs. So we inventoried, he wrote the check, did enough things, had a couple of people hired, and had enough business. By the time Monday came around, he could make the deposit and buy the change fund that he had bought from them on Friday and cover part of his check. $61,000 is what, $61,000 I think was the total price for that store at that time. That was 1963. It was in June 1st, 1963. We're building a store in Jinx right now. Just the building's $6,000,001. Just the building. That's where you get the inventory and some of the other stuff in it. Of course, there was a lot of land work, some stuff and there's some other things in there, but it's just kind of shows you the magnitude. Of course, everything's more expensive today, so it's all relative, right? So anyway, we end up here in Tahlequah. Monday comes around, he goes and puts the note together, signs on the dotted line, and he told me, a year or two before he passed away, while he was still in good health, and we were laughing about some of this, and he made the comment that he would work and then just make a draw periodically. And he started out, I think, $50 a week is what he took. And that paid our rent, so that's $200 a month. That paid our rent, that paid food, that paid for everything. And we do pay for our own food. People are always amazed when they see my mother or somebody, my wife, somebody in line, they go, well, what are you doing? Well, I'm shopping. I got to eat like the rest of you. But no, I mean, and that's the way we grew up. Everything we did, there was no mother needs a car, so let's write a check out of the company, and there was never any of that kind of BS. And it ultimately paid dividends when I sold the company here about a year ago, and I'll try to get to that. I'll try to save something for the end of this. I think I got a start in the middle. I'm not sure I got an ending to this story. So anyway, $50 a week, and he told me before he passed away that if he could ever get to $150 a week, he said he wouldn't retire. He said, but we've been on Easy Street. Okay, this was 1963. Things change, right? Things change. So he ended up having to let most of the help go. He only retained one guy, Walter McDowell, who was running the produce at the time. Walter just passed away here about 2 years ago. Great guy, and they were the only two original employees for the longest while. And the reason I mention Walter is not for any other reason. He was truly somebody I really admired and thought a lot of. Because I grew up here at the end of the night, and there weren't that many dollars. But at the end of the night, and you look at money and you look at checks and stuff in our business, you can't tell who gave it to you. I mean, you can see the name, you can see the name that's on it, but you can't tell who gave it to you. I grew up in an age, and we have an Indian population. There's black, white. There's a little bit of everything here. And I grew up in a house that didn't matter. Walter McDowell was a black fella that, like I said, that was very dedicated. He was very quiet by nature, but he was a terrific individual. And the thing was so great about it, even when and this was 1963, and as the company grew, he stayed working in produce. And then when we added another store in, I think it was 1972, down, it's where the Aaron's rent-a center is down there now. That was our second store. In fact, they advised my dad not to do it. He said, you can't have two grocery stores of the same owner in a small town like that. It won't work. Well, it did. You know, they just didn't have enough gumption, I think, to go out and try to do it. Anyway, Walter moved down there. But the thing about Walter is he was quiet to himself, and they never thought he saw anything. But if you wanted to know anything, you'd always go ask Walter. At least that's what my dad and I would do. You go ask Walter, and they just think he's over there doing his produce and not seeing a damn thing. He said, Walter, we got a problem here. We've got somebody stealing from us and blah, 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 blah. He said, you need to watch the Coke guy closer, or you need to watch the Pepsi guy. He said, here's what he's doing. He's bringing in 5 stacks, and they did it on 2-wheelers at the time. He said he's bringing in 5 stacks. He's taking the empty pop bottles, which is what I grew up doing, you know, days gone by, and he's doing it, he's shuffling, he's moving stacks around, he's shortchanging you one case every time. He said, I noticed it this morning for the first time. So anyway, you know, you'd catch the guy, and they just thought I was brilliant, or they'd think my dad was brilliant, or whoever was running the store, they'd think they were brilliant. How could they figure all that out? Of course, Pepsi, Coke, whoever it is, they're always embarrassed because it's their employee. But what they do in those days, what they did in those days is they would take, you know, if they cheated you, you got the invoices all turned in, they cheated you for $10 or something. Now they've got an extra case of pop. So they would go down the street to the convenience store, which wasn't much of a convenience store at the time, and they would sell that case of pop to them for the $10, which was done in cash, and they'd put the money in their pocket. Okay, and that's how the little scam was run. And so you always had to watch all the people coming in the back door. Well, today we've got scanners, and some of it we count, some of it we don't, some of it's perpetual inventory. There's all sorts of ways they do it. We don't have to do that. But in those days gone by, you needed people that were sharp enough to understand what you were trying to do. And I can tell you, there aren't as many of them as there once was. Maybe that's because I'm getting older. Think, do I sound like your parents? That's okay. Amen. Okay, it's all right. It's because I'm old enough to be your parent. My kids were down yesterday. I'm a new grandfather. That's not a statistic I'm making up. And they were down yesterday, and of course the baby gets up in the night, and it's 6, 7 weeks old, and I just sleep through it anymore. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty relaxed about this stuff now. And I told them the same thing my father-in-law told me after, you know, if you let that baby cry just a few minutes, you know, it'll go back to sleep. My daughter's now beginning to learn that. She didn't think that was very kind to me not to give her that information sooner. You know, so she's been having to get up a few more times than they cared to. So anyway, we're in 1963, and Tahlequah was a great place. East, this way. This street right over here is Cali Street. That's where I grew up, a couple blocks north of here. There were people coming on campus at that time. Jack Dobbins was already here, and known him, and Mike and Mark, Judge Dobbins. Hopefully none of you all have had to meet him while you're here, and Jackie. There was another fellow that came on to campus this time. Tom Eckert was a freshman, came on shortly after that, and my dad knew him, and those guys were always palling around at the store a little bit. So a lot of those people and a lot of those relationships go back a lot of years. But it was a great time to grow up. I would go get oranges. I used to love the spring, actually this time of year, because the navel oranges were cheap, you know, relatively speaking. And I could go buy them when Dad put them on sale for 10 for a buck, or 20 for a buck. I'd go buy them, nickel a piece, for those of you that aren't following. And anyway, you take it, and then I would go to the baseball field, and I would sell them for 10 cents and double my money. You know, so I had this deal, and I had to coordinate my mother to make sure she went and got oranges, and I'd come home from Cherokee, and then it was just 2 blocks back. Anyway, I got to know a lot of those guys, and I knew they'd leave money under their carpet in their car, and you know, all that stuff. But anyway, that's how I earned money. That, and I sold spud nuts. Everybody know what a spud nut is? It's a donut made out of potato flour. There was one right down. Actually, it's where Vidalia's. You know where Vidalia's is? That's Alan Mills, who's our chief operating officer. His wife and daughter have that.